Hey everybody, welcome to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and here on my YouTube channel, and in this video we're going to take a look at the brand new version of Studio One. This is Studio One version 5. It's been out about a week now. Everyone's all over YouTube making their videos and blathering over Studio One 5, and I've just kind of been waiting a little bit before I put out my video, and I want to give you a little bit of a different look at this, at least from a mixing engineer's perspective. Okay, so when I did version 4, I kind of did the same thing. There are a ton of new features in Studio One version 5. I believe there's 70 plus new features, a lot of great features. Most of those features, me personally, I'm never going to use, but for someone who mixes music just about every single day, there's a couple of features here that I really like. I want to show those to you today and give you my, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new things that I like about Studio One version 5, although I'm sure there's a lot of other great features here, but I want to show it to you from a mixing engineer's perspective. People have asked me, and I said, okay, let me go ahead and let me do a quick little video for you. So if everyone wants to know, there's 2 things you need to know before upgrading to Studio One version 5. If you already have Studio One version 3 or 4, 2 things very, very important. Number 1, and probably the most important, because we had this problem, or people have had the problem going from version 3 to version 4, is that when you open up one of your existing sessions that you did in version 3 or in version 4, and you open it up in Studio One version 5, when you go to save it for the first time, you are going to get a dialog box. It's going to say, this session was created in an older version of Studio One. Do you want to proceed and save it? If you do say yes, you are not going to be able to go back and open up that session again in an older version. So whenever any DAW company puts out a brand new release like this, there inherently may be a bug here or there, things that they haven't caught, things that they didn't expect. And so what I would recommend that you all do is, if you're going to open up one of your existing sessions in Studio One version 5, before you do that, you want to go, for example, say this was Studio One version 4.5 or any other older version. You want to come up to Studio One, you want to go to Save to New Folder. Files, Save to New Folder. Okay, what Save to New Folder is going to do, it's going to open up a dialog box, and let's say you want to put it on the desktop. It is going to make a complete duplicate of not only the song file, but all the audio files that go along with that, and it's going to make a complete duplicate packet of everything that you need to reopen that in Studio One 4 again. So you can put it wherever you want on your computer, and that's going to make a complete duplicate. Then you can go ahead and open up your session in Studio One 5, save it, and you'll always have a restored version in an older version in case you need to go back. Super, super important that you realize that, because once you open it in version 5 and save it, if you don't have an older version, you cannot go back to version 4 or earlier, okay? And the second thing to know, because people have already asked me about this via email, was, is this a paid upgrade? Yes, it is a paid upgrade. Now, you have to go to the Presonus.com website and read about how much it's going to cost for you to upgrade. Depends on what version you have and whether you have the Prime, the Artist, or the Professional version. I'm not going to quote prices here because they could change depending on when you're watching this video. So those 2 things are super important for you to realize. Now, let me tell you about the few things that I really like from a mixing engineer's perspective. Number 1 is this thing called mix scenes, save and mixing scenes. And what is that exactly? Well, for someone like me who mixes, like I said, every single day, you have a mix here, okay? And let's say I'm sending off a mix to a client, and I have all the balances, I have all the effects, so on and so forth, and I'm going to send over a version to the client for approval. You can open up this little button down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the mixer right here called right here, called Mix Scenes, okay? And this will allow us to take a snapshot of the mix exactly where it is in real time, and you can save it as a revision. Think of it that way. You can even recall different options. If you want to only save the inserts or only save the sends or the cue mixes, you can customize how you want the scene to be set up. Typically, I'm going to have everything checked here. So let's say this is my mix. I could come over to the plus button and I can say, first mix, okay? Save that as my first mix. Send it off to the client. Client gives me some feedback and says, great mix, Dave, but I really like the bass guitar and the acoustic guitar, the bass to be turned down and the acoustic guitar to be turned up a little bit. Can you do that for me? Sure, no problem. Going to come over here and turn down the bass. Going to turn up the acoustic guitars. Oh, and by the way, the electric guitars are a little too loud as well. Okay, great. Let's highlight all those. Let's turn all those down. I'm going to save this as another scene. Okay, so maybe I'm going to come over here, click scene. I'm going to go mix 2 or rev B or however you want to do it. Hit OK. So now I have mix 2. I can send it off to the client. Client gets the project and says, sounds great, but you know what? I think I need you to reverse the acoustic guitar and the bass. I liked it the way it was the first time. Well, how do you easily do that? Unless you wrote down the exact settings of where it was or you just use your ear. If you just want to go back to what it was, I can just open this back up, click on first mix, and look at all the faders pop right back in place. Okay? That is super powerful. That is something I will use all the time. Okay, very, very cool. And as I said, there are some recall options here that you can choose if you want, depending on what you want to do. But that is a great feature. I never knew I needed that feature until it came out. That's an awesome feature to have. I've already used it once on a client project I just did the other day, and we had a problem or an issue with the kick drum. Turn it up, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down. I was able to use this and go right back to where I started before the change was made. Very, very cool. So mix scenes are a very cool thing. The second feature that I really like that I'm going to use all the time, and probably my most favorite feature, which I probably should have saved till the end, is what we call gain envelope. This is going to be huge for someone like me for things like working on a lead vocal and doing things like manual de-essing. Now, if you watched any of my videos on YouTube, if you search my channel for manually de-essing, I show this all the time. I showed this in my training courses. I showed this over at mixingmadeeasy.net. All those links will be in the description box. But I like to go into a vocal before I start processing it and look for the S's, look for the hard consonants, things that are going to cause problems in the mix when I start compressing and using EQ. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to say lower an S, and let's say right here is where my S is. In the past, I would have to use my blade tool. I'd have to come over here, use my blade, cut on either side of the S, go back to my arrow tool, click in here, and then I can use my clip gain and I can do this and turn down the S. I do this all the time. And I may have 10 or 15 or even more of these little cuts and chops throughout the entire lead vocal. And then when I was all done, I would have to, if I had a bunch of cuts here and I had a bunch of adjustments, now I got a vocal track that looks kind of like this. And you can inadvertently nudge one of these pieces out of place while you're in editing, and you can screw up the timing of the song. So I would have to go in, highlight everything, do a Command B and bounce it all to one block of audio. Easy enough to do, but it's got a few extra steps. With clip gain, with gain envelope is what I think they call it. If you highlight the event that you're working on, okay, and you right click, you click this little box here, gain envelope. It's going to put a line in the middle of your track. Now watch how we can do this. Let's say this is the S right here. I don't have to switch my tools. As I move my cursor, it turns over to a little finger, a little hand. I can put a point here. I can put a point here, grab in the middle, pull down, and I can see how much I've actually lowered that. I could even change the shape of it a little bit. If it's right at the beginning of a phrase, let's say, and I only want to affect the very first transient of the first syllable of a phrase, I can do it here. I can just pull the whole thing down in the middle, or I can raise it up. Very, very cool. Very cool thing. I don't have cuts. I don't have to worry about bouncing things to make sure it's one block of audio. This is very cool. Another handy feature is, let's say, not only for de-essing, but let's say it's a very dynamic instrument where maybe there's a few words throughout the song that are super, super loud at the beginning of phrases. This happens all the time. And yes, you can use a compressor to control that, but if you're setting your compressor to control one phrase or one or two words and it's not kind of working on the overall track, it's just as easy to go in and lower a phrase. Let's see if we can find something like right here. That word might be way too loud. So again, I can just clip here, point here, grab it in the middle, turn down that one word and kind of level out the performance before I start processing. Very, very cool. And then you want to get rid of, you can right click again, get rid of the gain envelope, and all your changes have been saved. You don't need to bounce anything. That is a super cool feature. Probably my favorite, the one I'm going to use all the time. Very nice job, Presonus, on that. I really, really enjoy that one. The third thing about Studio One 5 that it's kind of cool. Again, a lot of people are making a massive deal on how awesome this is. I don't think it's that awesome, but I think it is pretty cool on some level. As they've changed and updated the look of some of the GUI interfaces, which is really cool. Things like the analog delay, that's very cool, very vintagey, much better than the old one. And supposedly, and I haven't really tried much of this yet, I have to try it, and I'll let you know once I demo this for myself, that they've done their state space modeling technology on some of these things. So they're going to sound more vintagey. They're going to have a different sound to them as well, not just a different look, and there's some extra features. We'll have to test that out for ourselves, because I could tell you that typically the weakest point of a lot of DAWs, I feel, my opinion, is their stock analogs, their stock delays and reverbs are typically not my favorite. I almost never use stock plugins for reverbs and delays. There's so many other better, in my opinion, third-party plugins that I own. So it'll be interesting to see how this stacks up, but it looks really cool. It's a nice refresh look. I like that they did that. That is really cool. Things like the Pro EQ, they've changed. I've used this quite a bit, and they got, kind of the fab filtery kind of a look, which is really cool as well. And they've also added some additional features on the way you can look at the different things of the EQ, the way it's displayed. They've added some different low cut filtering here, which I think is kind of cool, where you can just kind of click in here and do a low cut filter. So again, a little bit easier to use, a little bit easier on the eyes, looks a little bit more modern and updated. Very Logic XS, if I might say. Very nice, looks cool. Again, have some new features. I'm going to have to explore those myself, but this is the Pro EQ2, very cool. Things like the room reverb, again, I use this for early reflections, and so this is a cool thing. They've changed the look of this. That looks really nice. Things like the chorus, again, looks like the old Boss chorus, really, really cool. I'll have to play with that as well. The one thing that I wish they did, and they did this on a few of their plugins, like the Spectrum Analyzer, where you can actually resize the GUI. Why they don't do this on every single plugin is beyond me. And I'm not just talking about Presonus, I'm talking about every plugin company. Now, some of them do. And the ones that do, right on, man, especially if you're on small laptops or if you have old man eyes like me, to be able to resize all of the plugins is great. Now, they did it on this plugin, but they didn't do it on things like the Pro EQ. You can't do that. Oh my Lord, Presonus, come on. Maybe in the next update, all of the GUIs will be able to be resized. I'm just teasing Presonus as usual, but it looks really cool. They got to add, you got to be able to resize all the GUIs. That would be really, really cool. Okay, the user interface resize would be really, really cool. But overall, I like the overall look. Some of the state space modeling will be interesting to listen to. I think that's really cool. The next thing, and probably my second most favorite feature in Studio One 5, is what they call, and this is brand new, wasn't available in any version of Studio One up to this point, is what they call the show page. The show page. Now, a tip your hat to Ableton Live. I think in that, Ableton Live is really the only DAW up to this point that was really made to be used in a live performance. And I've always wished that Studio One would do something like that, and now they've done it. Look at that. I've only played with this a very little bit. I can't tell you that it's going to be able to replace Ableton. I do have some videos on my live streaming and my live performance setup. If you click in the links, I'll put it in the link in the description box if I think about it. If I forget, just look at my YouTube channel and search for Ableton Live. I have 3 or 4 videos that show you how I use Ableton Live for running backing tracks. This is Studio One's first crack at this thing. A couple of things I noticed right away that I like about this, at least from a user standpoint, while you're playing live on stage. It's a much more simple stripped down look, which is nice. It's not as cluttered and as busy looking to me as Ableton is. That's the one thing I don't like about Ableton. And so I think this is really cool, where you can add in your backing tracks here. You can see them on the, and I'll do a full video on this once I get more familiar with how to use it, where I've actually brought in 3 songs here, and it will play song from top to bottom, and it'll automatically stop at the end of each song, or it'll continue on, or it'll loop, which is really cool. The stop at the end is a really cool feature. In Ableton Live, you have to program a MIDI command to do that. Really smart of them to put that in there. And you may say, well, why is that an important feature? Well, if you're on stage playing live and you're a performer and you get to the end of song 1, you want song stops, you want the computer to stop playing. You don't want to have to reach over and hit a mouse or hit a space bar or anything like that because you're in the moment. You may want to talk to your audience between songs, so on and so forth. That's a really cool feature. In Ableton, it'll just keep running unless you program what they call the stop command, which I did a video on that. Again, it's on the YouTube channel. So that's pretty cool. You can also just rearrange the songs in any way you want. So I have these 3 songs here. If I want song 3 to be song 1 in tonight's set, I just left click and drag it and I can rearrange it, and it rearranges everything on the edit screen in the timeline as well. Very, very cool. Now I have this in as a multi-track for each one of these songs, although you can just do a 2-track stereo mix of your entire song and just have, you know, 1 track here of your full mix. You know what I mean? But I like to have more control over that because I want to be able to maybe control some of the levels of the multi-track. So you could do it either way. The one thing that I don't see here how to do yet, although I've read somewhere you can and I haven't figured out how to do it yet because I haven't played with this enough, is let's say you're in the this is your setup screen, obviously your edit screen. But when you're ready to perform, you come up here to the top of the menu bar, you hit perform. And here's our 3 songs here. The one thing I don't know how to do is, let's say in song number 1, let's say this is the drum track. Oh, I guess you can. Can you do this? I don't know how I can control the individual levels for each one of the tracks. So in other words, let me escape here. If I wanted to, in song number 1, let's say there's an electric guitar in that song. Okay, but song 2, there is no electric guitar. If I just turn it down here, it's going to turn it down for all the songs. But if I just want to turn it down for this first song, how do I do that? That's the one thing I haven't figured out yet. Now, I have looked at where you could come over here and mute it here, but then it also, if I play this back, it'll also... It'll actually mute it on the other track as well. I think that's the way this works. Yeah, see, so it mutes it here, and then when you get to song 2, it's still muted, right? So you just can't mute it on the main fader. Okay, so that's something that I have to learn how to do. I'm not sure how you do that. Here is where, in other words, I have guitars in every one of my songs, but maybe in 1 or 2 songs I want to pull that guitar out. Can I do that on the fly without affecting all the tracks? That is something you can do in Ableton. I'm sure you can do it in here. I just haven't figured it out yet. So I think the show page is really, really cool. This is something I'm super excited about. I'm starting to mock up, as you can see here, one of my Ableton Live sessions, and I'm going to try to play with this in rehearsal to see, can it replace Ableton for me? That would be really cool. I would much rather use Studio One than use Ableton. Number one, it's got to be rock solid, stable, especially when you're performing live. You can't have it crash. That's the one thing I will say about Ableton. I've never had Ableton hiccup or anything like that. Now, Studio One, from a recording and from a mixing point of view, in my opinion, out of all the DAWs I've ever used, is the most stable. But from a live performance, it would have to be tested and tested and tested before I would bring this thing out live. But I think it's a great first attempt. I'm sure over time it's going to be refined and more features will be added in. So I think this is fantastic. The only thing I hate about it is I wish it came out 4 or 5 months earlier so I didn't spend $500 on Ableton Live. So that's the only thing, but it's very, very cool. The other last thing about this that I'm not sure you can do yet that I can do with Ableton Live pretty easily is have Ableton Live controls also my lighting I have through DMX. So I have all my light scenes and all my lighting cues for each individual song. Again, I did that in a video on the YouTube channel. You can check that out with a third-party software called LightKey, which is awesome. I don't know how you do that in Studio One. Maybe that's something I can do. Maybe they haven't added that feature yet, but that would be something that you want to be able to easily be able to control lighting cues, because part of performing live is having lighting. And so it's super simple and streamlined in Ableton. It's probably can be done here, but I haven't seen anybody do it yet. I have to research more about that. That would be something that would be essential before I would use this live. But again, fantastic job as far as coming up with putting in the live piece of this, because I think that's something Studio One's been missing. The other thing I'd like to know is when you're performing live, can you then also that thing? Can I record that performance live multi-tracked here as well? Can you do two things at once? I don't know. I have to test that. If you're using a Studio Live Series 3 mixer like I am, you could just record it on the SD card. But if I want to have a backup, can I record that show live here at the same time as... We'll have to check that out. Very cool, though. I got to say, great job, Presonus, on that. The last thing that I think is pretty cool, again, I don't know a whole hell of a lot about this, but I think they're jumping into another territory that they haven't been involved in yet, and that is called Presonisphere, which is kind of a subscription-based service where you can pay a monthly fee and you can do all kinds of neat things. And if you go to their website, like we have here, you can watch the 1 minute 28-second video, and we can do that here. Again, something brand new. So it looks like as part of the subscription, you get Studio One 5, so you don't need to buy the software. Very cool. All their add-on plugins. That's cool as well. Normally you'd have to pay for that, but that's pretty cool that they give you all the add-on plugins. Get some drum loops, which is great. Notation, that's very cool as well. Okay, this is all included as part of a subscription-based service. 30 gigabytes of cloud storage. Very cool. Very cool. How much is the membership plan? Go check their website. I think it's about 15 bucks a month as the recording of this video, but you got to go check their website. They may have different plans. They may have monthly plans, and they seem like they have annual memberships as well, where normally you'll get some, usually you'll get a couple of free months at the end of your membership or something like that. They usually give you a better deal if you pay for it all up front. But again, check their website for more information. But to be able to collaborate, have the software, have cloud storage, that's really cool. People have asked, especially I've been asked about the collaboration piece and be able to share music with folks since we've been dealing with this whole pandemic in 2020. So if you're watching this in the future, in the beginning of 2020, we had the coronavirus. People are stuck at home. People were racing to figure out how they can collaborate, how they can create music online. This is a very cool feature. Now, other DAWs like Pro Tools and stuff have done things like this as well. So this is not something revolutionary and new, but just like most things with Presonus, at least from what I've seen, is that they usually do it a tad bit better. They take some of these ideas that other DAW companies have done and they try to make it a little more streamlined, a little bit more stable. So that is very, very cool. Studio One version 5 thus far. Again, from a mixing engineer perspective, it's great. If you're someone who writes music and does music production, there's even more features, and you can go watch the millions of videos that are already out there. Presonus has got a lot of new people on their staff, it seems like, doing all these kinds of videos, so you could go check them out to get some more details. But my followers wanted to know what I think, so I'm telling you what I think. And is it worth the upgrade price? Well, if you're someone who just does mixing like I do, and there's one or two features there that are really cool, like I mentioned, and if those things aren't that big of a deal to you, do you need to upgrade? No, you don't need to upgrade. But if you're someone who does a lot of music production, if you're someone who just wants to have the latest technology and features that are available, is it worth the, I think, around 150 bucks to upgrade, depending on what version you have and when you're watching this video? Yes, I think it is worth upgrading. Presonus usually gives you a lot of cool features. And the one thing I like about Presonus, and again, this is not a sponsored video, I paid for my upgrade. They don't give me software, anything like that. So that's, you know, full disclosure. I don't work for them, and they don't give me anything to say anything nice about them at all. But the one thing that I do like about Presonus, and one of the reasons why I stick with Studio One, and I have all the DAWs, and this is the one that I always turn to the most, is for a couple of reasons. One, they seem to be the most stable DAW. Two, it seems to be the most intuitive DAW, especially if you're a beginner. Three, when they put out updates, they're always trying to put a lot of really cool, you know, features that are not just useless little add-ons so they can charge people money. Really useful features. Four, a lot of these features come from the users that send in information or send in requests. They kind of rack them and stack them by popularity, and they try to add those things in. And so I think that's really, really cool. And five, their support staff is at least in my experience. Again, this is not a paid sponsored video, and I don't work for them, but is definitely the best support staff of most companies I've ever dealt with in this industry. I've put in support tickets with them before, and within 48 hours, I have an answer from them. You don't get that with a lot of other companies. Some you do, certainly, but Presonus has developed a reputation for delivering that. Okay, so that's really cool. And five, as far as the community of support, that's not even tied to Presonus, but the user community, the different Facebook groups and the user forums and stuff. There are a lot of helpful individuals there that can help you, especially if you're a beginner. Even someone like me. So I help tons of Studio One users. So that's Studio One version 5 from my point of view thus far. If I find more goodies in there that I can share with you, I will certainly do that. I want to thank you for watching this entire video. Now, as I said at the beginning of every video, I want to give you a free gift, especially if you're new here. If this is your first time here, welcome to the HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com family. I want you to go to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. I want to give you 5 free mixing training courses. It's worth about $200. It's my gift to you just for checking out Home Recording Made Easy and see what I have going on over there. And if you're a Studio One user, I have the largest collection of specific Studio One training than anybody to date. If you go on the website, under the training courses page on my website, there is a page dedicated to Studio One courses. They're all in version 4, but they apply to version 5. There's not that many differences where the beginner training doesn't apply. So go check out Studio One training courses if that's what you're into. So that's my gift to you. I also want to give you a coupon code in the description box below. YouTube25. You use that at checkout, you could take 25% off of any of the training courses on my website. So until the next video, I've been Dave with HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and MixingMadeEasy.net. Check all the links in the description box below. Let me know what you think of Studio One version 5 by commenting below as well, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.